Hey everyone. So this video is going to go over making graphics for site analysis. And I apologize in advance for my audio quality. Kind of potato right now, but I'll work with it. Um, so to start off with a quote, every site speaks, design begins when you learn to listen. So in a site analysis, we typically look for things like sun path and shadows, wind direction, topography, circulation, views, noise, and other things. So essentially, your site analysis is communicated through various means. They can be hand-drawn, made into a collage, diagrammed, etc. Essentially, you want to focus on creating a graphic presentation that helps your audience understand the site. So for example, some students will make like multiple layers of their site analysis and then overlay on top of each other to show like the same geographic location, and then just highlight different areas like greenery, access points, and the site itself. Other people will take a more abstract route and they'll kind of do or use like geometry, red lines to represent certain aspects of the site. And I think this is my personal favorite, and it's really cool. This is an example of a hand-drawn site analysis I did for a previous project. But in this one, I show the sun path, where pedestrian access comes from, and also the surrounding buildings. And for soil-borne farms, this is also an example of what I did for my site analysis. And this is kind of an enlarged site, but I broke it into 4 different categories: movement, view, sound, private public spaces, and then also indicated my north here. I also did one of an overall 55-acre site of soil-borne farms itself, and I show the sun path here, where winds come from, and of course my north arrow here. So in this video, we'll be making a site analysis for our overall 55-acre area of soil-borne farms, and then we'll kind of zoom in and show the 7-acre site analysis, which is this area here. And then after that, we're going to make a quick presentation using Indesign just to kind of familiarize ourselves with the software and just compile all of our elements here. And for our site analysis, we'll be using Photoshop and Google Earth Pro. So moving into what we'll be making, this is a 55-acre site, but here we're showing sun path, and then also where winds are coming from, and also some of the surrounding context. And then we zoom in, and we kind of show our 7-acre site, and it's all going to be collaged into one area. But we show positive views, positive sound, where public spaces are and where more private spaces are. We know where circulation comes from, and also the site. And then we're going to take all of our elements and then combine it into a collage style presentation, where we have our 55-acre, 7-acre, and then also some text and photos that we grabbed from the internet. So cool, let's jump into it. Go ahead and show you guys how to grab base images from Google Earth Pro that we'll be using for our site analyses. So if you don't have it installed already, it's free on the internet, but I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And it's essentially like Google Earth on the web, but you do have control over what you see here through layers. You can note places down and also take screenshots directly from the app, which you can't do in the web. So I'm just going to zoom into soil-borne farms. You can use the search button here if you can't find it. So it's around here. And what we're going to do first is grab the 55-acre site overall. What I want to do is take a 2D shot of this in high quality, and we'll make it letter size as a PDF. So I'm going to use the control buttons here to reset my view to north and make it 2D. So I'm going to click on this north arrow here, reset that to north, and then I'm going to use this dragger thing and just kind of hover down until I stop at 2D. So just kind of like drag it down, and then you can put north again. I'm going to bring it to an area that I think captures the whole site. I'm going to go into File here, press Print, and it's going to bring up this kind of window here. I don't want to see, I just want this to be blank, so I don't want to see any titles or any place names. So I'm going to go into map options here, turn off title and description, legend, scale, and compass, and we're just going to save it as a PDF. I'm going to go ahead and navigate to where I have my interpretive center file open or saved. So it should be right here. And we're going to save it in our schematic design folder. And I'll put today's date, so it's July 13th. And then I'll actually title it blank 55 acre site. And we're going to press save. All right, so now that we have our 55 acre site saved, I'm going to go ahead and navigate and zoom into our 7 acre site. So just using our scroll button here, I'm going to exit out of printing mode by clicking this X. And I'm going to capture this overall area and put it in 2D. So we're going to use that method again by click to look around and drag it down. Click on north again, and we're going to grab this area here. So I'm going to go through the same steps, file, print, save PDF, and this time we're going to title it 7 acre site. Cool. So next up, we'll start doing post-production for our 55 acre site. So first up, you're going to open Photoshop, and what we're going to do is actually open the file directly because it's a PDF. So we'll grab our 55 acre site and press open. And then we're going to press OK. And cool. So I'm going to resize it to kind of go down to the artboard here. And I'm going to do a little trick to get rid of this logo real quick. So I'm actually going to go to the rectangular mark tool. And we're going to use a generative fill to actually remove the logo. And the reason why we're doing this is because we're going to add a white surrounding area, and we don't want that Google Earth logo to show when we change the opacity of the white area. So I'm going to open up layer, and we're going to add our masking layer, and we're going to create a white area using our brush tool. We'll change the size to like 5,000 pixels, and just draw all over it. And I'm actually going to title this layer mask. And for now, we're going to hide it and use the polygonal lasso tool to kind of edge out a side. So I'll click on this and just kind of get a rough outline. So it's like kind of like there, there, and right there. So now what I'm going to do next is go into our mask layer. I'm going to turn it on, and then I'm going to press delete. And what this does is it, carves out an area of the site in our mask area. And maybe I want to make it a little more see-through, just so we can kind of see the context of the site. So I'll put it to like 80, and that shows enough. One thing I'm going to do is change our base layer to black and white. So I'm going to go to image here, adjustments, black and white, and it gives us some settings here. If we tweak each individual color, it'll kind of like accentuate it in the black and white filter. So I'm actually going to turn on the greens and make it about 300%, just so we can emphasize kind of the greenery around there. Maybe I'll also turn on the reds, and that kind of makes the buildings pop out more. Press OK. All right, so we have the base for our site analysis for our 55 acre site. So I'm actually going to lock our layers so that we don't accidentally grab something while we're trying to move. Cool. So we'll start with the sun diagram on top. For this one, usually I use a tool like SunCalc, this website, and it kind of gives you information on like when the sun sets on a certain day, when it rises, etc. But for now, we're just going to kind of cheese in our sun analysis. And what I'm going to do first is use the ellipse tool, hold shift, and create a nice little circle. when you do a site analysis or like any kind of graphic presentation, you probably want to have a color palette in mind. So for our site analyses, we're going to just kind of keep like an orange and red color palette, maybe even just orange. But so this is going to be our radius for our sun path. I'm just going to overlay it on the general site. Maybe make it a little bit larger. And then what I'm going to do is I like to go online and just search up like sun path PNG or something you can like copy from the internet into your Photoshop file. So for example, this one, I'm going to right click it, copy image, and then just paste it in. So Control V. It has a white background, but Photoshop has this neat tool that remove background. So we'll click on that, and then we have this. So let's say you have your kind of sun path figured out now. You can just center it along this circle here, and just hold Shift and skew your sun path to kind of meet where that sun path actually goes. So this is the summer, and to kind of show the winter, I'll copy this over by holding Alt, and I'm going to resize it by holding Shift again, or maybe not holding Shift quite yet, but just making the sun path smaller, aligning it at the center here, and then just kind of skewing it over like that. I'll press done. And one thing I also want to do is group all of the layers for the sun diagram into one folder. So I'm going to hold Shift and click down to the ellipse. And then I'm going to click on this folder here and type in sun path. And mind you, my camera is covering the tools, but it's just like at the bottom right. And it looks like this. So maybe I also want to adjust the opacity of these ones because it is a little bit bright right now. So maybe I'll do like 80, maybe 60, and I actually kind of want to adjust our winter to be more, to kind of overlay over the summer more. Maybe just like that. Yeah. Yeah, that should be good enough. It's a little bit asymmetrical, but I'll just kind of like tease it over. All right. So that's our sun path. Maybe I also want to do like a yellow circle just to show the sun. So I'll just hold Shift, click on that. Maybe I'll make the fill like this orange color over here, or just this orange one, and then just drag it over. Oop, like that. Maybe I'll change the opacity to 60%. Cool. So this is our sun path, and now we're going to show winds. So let's say you have you've done like your site study, you have that figured out, and we're just going to use like arrows to indicate where the winds are coming from. So I'll type up arrow PNG, and I'll find something I can copy into my Photoshop file. So we'll just grab this one. I'll right click it, copy image, and then paste it into my file. And now we're going to kind of rotate it to show maybe the summer winds. And I'll use my past. Oh yeah, so winter winds kind of come from the southeast. So I'll go there. So maybe I'll hold Control just to make it a little bit thinner. Shift it down like that. And maybe make it a little bit smaller. And what I'm doing right now is just holding Alt and copying those over. And then maybe I'll actually group them together. It'll let me. And then folder them and just show them as winter winds. Cool. So there's that. I want to keep my color palette consistent, so what I'm actually going to do is use a color overlay to make them more of an orangish color. So I'll double click on this folder, and it's going to bring up this menu here. I'm just going to choose color overlay and make them maybe a little bit of a darker orange, kind of like about there. Maybe more of a reddish orange. Yeah, this should be good. And then maybe I'll change the opacity of my winter winds to like 70. And what you can actually do is copy this folder over using Control C and Control V and retitling this folder as summer winds. And then we'll just select all of this, rotate it to the correct direction of the summer winds. And maybe I want to use a different color just so that we can differentiate it. So I'll double click this, change the color overlay to like maybe a bit of a lighter orange. Press OK, and maybe change up. That should be good. Yeah. So maybe I actually want to change up my arrows a little bit just so it's more asymmetrical. So I'll just kind of like do that. Maybe resize these ones. Cool. So now I'm going to add maybe a little bit of text to label the sun path, winds here, and then maybe even the surrounding area. So I'm going to use the text tool. Just kind of click down here, and then I'll type in like summer winds. And this is definitely too big of a font, so I'll adjust it to like 12 point. And it's already matched with the color over here, so I'm totally fine with that. And I'll just kind of like put it over here. Maybe rotate it a little bit. Cool. And one thing that's super important is we also want to note our north, where north is coming from. So I'm just going to go back into Google here and search up like north arrow PNG. And this one is pretty simple. So I'm just going to copy this over and bring it into my file. And probably just note it like kind of down here. And maybe I want to label my drawing at the bottom right here. So I'm going to title this 55-acre site analysis, soil-borne farms, Rancho Cordova, California. And I'll probably make this a bit of a larger text, like 60 point. Oops. And there we go. So this is our 55-acre site. And we're going to make sure to save it, of course. And I'm actually going to title it 55-acre site analysis. And instead of saving it in my schematic design folder, I'm actually going to save it in presentation and just make a new title called, or new folder called site analysis. And that way, because this is post-production content, it's all in one place. Press OK, save PDF, and cool. So we're going to follow the same steps we did with the 55-acre site. And to open, I'm going to navigate back to schematic design and click on the 7-acre site. Press open. And I'll do the same thing I did earlier. Just resize it and remove the logo. So just select it, generate fill, then remove logo. And then after this, we're going to add that white mask that we added to the previous one and just outline this specific site. So image, adjustments, black and white, accentuate our greens and also our reds. And now we'll start to do our post-production. So now I'm going to do probably circulation first. I'm going to do probably the vehicle area. So I'm going to first select this pen tool, and we're gonna kind of draw a path that shows where vehicles come from. Oh, let me add a bit opacity to the mask, so about 80%, just so we can see the road here. And I'm going to go back into the pen tool and just kind of like draw some points like right here. So vehicles kind of come from around here and go to like this parking lot here or this parking lot there. And you also want to adjust your settings here because it's creating a shape right now, but we just want a path. So we're going to make sure shape is selected. We're going to remove the fill and maybe make the stroke a bit of a darker red color. And we'll probably make it about 20 pixels. And then I'm going to tile the shape vehicle circulation. And then now what I'm going to do is show pedestrian circulation. So there's multiple points of entry into kind of the interpretive center area. So from the farm, American River, and also from this parking lot. So we're going to represent that. So I'm going to click on my pen tool. Maybe I'll change my stroke to a bit of a light orange color, and then just start drawing. So maybe I'll click from here and just go along the path. And then I'll click on here, press escape, and then I can also use a pen tool again to kind of like do multiple lines at the same time. I kind of come from here to there, also from there, there, and there. So this is kind of the pedestrian circulation around Solar Point Farms. And I'm actually going to make a folder out of all of these ones and just title it circulation. It may feel a little too like colored right now, so I'm going to change the opacity to about 70%, just so it's a little bit easier to see underneath the site. And now what I'm going to do is actually draw a bit of an outline around the site itself. So I'm actually going to use a polygonal lasso tool and just kind of outline the site a little bit, probably around the existing farm office too. And then I'm actually going to create a new layer, type fill, and then we're actually going to choose maybe this white color, if it'll let me. I'm now going to title this site, and we're going to add a stroke around this filled area. So I'm going to double click this. It'll let me. Oh, there we go. I'm going to turn on stroke and maybe make it a outside line and change the stroke to maybe about 10 pixels, and then maybe make it a little bit more, add some opacity so they can see underneath. Oops. Usually when this happens with your selection tool, just try to click where you started and just press deselect. I kind of feel like my site wants to be a different color, so I'm just going to go ahead and use a color layover tool again. Maybe highlight it with a very dark red, a deep red. Or maybe just about, yeah, that should be fine. Cool. So we have our site outlined and the circulation paths, and now maybe let's work on our views. So there are a couple options you can go around it. You can draw shapes, you can draw arrows, and just to make it a little bit easier, I'm just going to use the arrow option and copy a PNG. So I'm going to maybe do wide arrow, PNG, maybe even triangle PNG. And then just grab like something like this. Copy it and paste it into my drawing. So with a view shed, it's kind of interesting because you're seeing it almost in a triangular view. So we're actually going to rotate this and position it along here. Maybe make it a little bit thinner. And then we'll overlay it with a bit of a yellowish color. Maybe even a green. Change the opacity to about 60 or 50. That's going to be our positive view shed. And to give it a little bit of more pop, we can copy it over, resize it, make sure they're not overlaying each other. Then that's our positive view shed. So I'm going to make a group, title it positive view shed. Then maybe even drag it down below circulation. To get our negative view shed, I'm actually just going to copy over this folder right here. Select everything within my folder, rotate it down like that, then drag it to about here. And this is going to be our negative view shed, so we don't want to see the neighboring houses. And make it more of a red color, and also rename this folder. So I'll double click this, change the color overlay to be maybe more of a negative color, so like magenta like that is fine. Just kind of clump it together. Now that I'm kind of looking at this, I probably really want to accentuate circulation. So I might as well just kind of grab my circulation folder and make it like a very bright red. Select my color overlay, make it like a bright red like that, press OK. Maybe make my negative view shed less opacity, so like 50. I'll change my site color to actually be a different color, maybe just like solid white. It'll let me select. Kind of like that. Increase the opacity level, and probably change this to. So we've documented 2 out of the 4 things that we're going to do. And now let's jump into negative and positive sounds. To represent sound, usually I like to use a wave. So I'm going to use like wave PNG. And probably use something like this. Just copy it over and we'll just paste it in. So this is definitely too saturated. So I'm actually just going to double click it, add a color overlay, and we'll kind of frame it into our positive and negative views, sounds. So maybe I'll make this a bit of green sound. Press OK. Rotate it. Right about here. copy it over. Oh, I'm sorry, not that mask. It's kind of like over here. And then I'll group this over and title it positive sound. Maybe put it below circulation. And then I'll just copy over my positive sound folder and just rotate it and bring it to about here. And I definitely want to change up the folder name to negative sound. I'll overlay it with more of a red color. Maybe space this a little bit and increase my negative sound space. And there we go. So next up would be public and private spaces. And so since our diagram is kind of very graphically rich, we're just going to keep it more of a low-key thing. So how we're going to approach public and private spaces is using a tool that's similar to this, and just overlaying all of our public spaces in green and negative, private spaces in red. So I'm just going to use the polygonal lasso tool again, just to kind of select like a very rough area of where public spaces are. So now I'm going to create a new layer that's titled public space. Bring it to the top, add a fill, and we'll probably replicate the screen color. Maybe almost make it white. Then we'll press OK. And then what I'm going to do is change the opacity to like something simple, like probably 40%. Just drag it below probably my circulation. Maybe I also want to add a bit of a stroke to it, but just something that's super low key. And I'll press OK. And then now I'm going to label kind of like the private area. So I'm going to use the lasso tool again. I'll create a layer titled private space. Oops. And then I'll just select everything. So now I'm going to fill that in using more of a red color. So if I just click off here, and this magenta pinkish color should be fine. Then I'll press OK. Then I'll change it to about 40%. Deselect. And those are kind of more of our private spaces. So as you can see, we used a kind of a red color scheme along with a green one. Also, I'm going to go ahead and save this in post-production. So I'll go to Presentation, Site Analysis, and then I'll do 7-acre site analysis. So now, our last step is just maybe to add text to show, circulation, view shed, public spaces. All right, cool. So this should be done. Of course, you should kind of focus on creating your own kind of graphic uniqueness. So you obviously don't have to follow this, but this is kind of just to show you guys the techniques of what's going on. All right, so now that we have our 55-acre site and our 7-acre site, we're going to jump into making a presentation of what we've created. All right, cool. All right, so to start off, we're going to do new file, and then I'm going to use the print function and choose 11 by 17, which is this tabloid one. I'll change the unit to inches, make it landscape, and then create a new file. And it brings me to this empty page here. So how InDesign works is it's basically Google Slides, but there's a lot more features in it. Every time you put in a image, PDF, or something of that sort, it's essentially a link. So for example, if I were to use this rectangle frame tool and just kind of click and drag across my page, it's going to give me this prompt that says import image. So if I click on that, I have the option of choosing images from my files. And let's say I want to import one of my precedent boards. It brings me to this. So you can see that it's a little zoomed in. And since this is like a window into your file, you can just click and drag and crop it to the correct size. There's also this function here that allows you to fit your content to the actual frame, kind of like that. So that's kind of what we're going to do with our site analyses. And we're just going to click and drag our files into our page here. So I'll grab my 55 acre, drag it in here, click here, and then just maybe align it to this margin over here. I want to resize it so I can fit the other 7 acre analysis here. So I'm just going to click on this file, hold Control Shift, and then just resize it. Maybe to about here is fine. And then I'll open or drag in my 7 acre, and then just click off to the side. And for now, resize it that way. Cool. So this is our site analysis, and now we're going to add maybe some context photos and some text. So some things I like to do is go into Google here and just search up images like soil-borne farms, and then just copy my images into the document. So I'll right-click, copy image, and then paste into here, resize it to about right here, and then I'll add some more. So now that we have our images in, they feel a little bit too saturated. So what I'm going to do is select all my images, hold Shift, and just select them all and change the opacity to maybe about 70%. And that allows us to emphasize more of the site analysis rather than the images. I'm also going to demonstrate a little concept about how we can constantly update files and then re-link them into InDesign. And this is super clever and useful if you're constantly changing like your graphics and you just kind of want to have a layout of your poster before finalizing everything. So I'm going to open up my 55 acre site, and I probably don't want to see the title right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete it and then save it. And it's going to take a moment. And then when I go back into my InDesign file, you can see this white or yellow triangle mark. And it's just telling us that a new version of the file has been saved. And all we need to do is click on it, and that gets us to the correct version. And you can see that we have the title hidden here. So now I'm going to add some text and just click off to the side here. Maybe I want to label my site analyses, so I'll change my font to Century Gothic. 12 point is okay, and then I'll title it 55 acre site analysis. And probably just resize it and bring it above into my file. And then I'll probably copy it over by holding Alt, bring it here, and then I'll title this one 7 acre site analysis. So now I'm going to add an overall title, and we'll just title this like Soil-Borne Farms Site Analysis. And then I'll probably put in the location. So we're going to show Cordova, California, and then also my name and class number. I'll probably change the title to 20-point font, and that should be good. I also want to add some text. So adding text in InDesign, again, is very simple. You just click and drag a box. And I'm not going to type a whole paragraph here, but if you want to have like some kind of placeholder text, you just go to type, fill with placeholder text, and it will get you this. You can also change up the font of your placeholder text. And just kind of extend it. I'll change the font to about 10 point. And then maybe even copy this over and add some text over here. All right, cool. So now we're going to make sure to save our file, and we'll do it in the presentation folder in our site analysis, and then I'll just title it with a day. So 2025, July 14th, site analysis. Cool. So if you want to view this, how it would be printed, you would actually hold Control Enter. I'm sorry, Control W. So if you want to show how your presentation would look when it's printed, you're going to hold Shift W. And it's going to take a while, but it brings us to presentation mode. And you can see like all the images are shown in like full quality. So let's say if you want to export your InDesign file as a PDF, it's pretty simple. You would just go to File, Export, and then you can do multiple file types. I'm just going to choose Adobe PDF. And then I'll navigate back to my presentation here and just keep the same file type name. Now press Export. And yeah, you're pretty much done. So this is how you compile your site analysis into InDesign, and we'll kind of go more over the software later as we progress in our project. But yeah, all right, I hope to see you in the next video.